Good morning, Coolest Coast. It is time for coffee with Kristin and Tina. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Coffee with Kristin and Tina. We're your hosts. This is Kristin Odell. I'm Tina Prigge. You know, Kristin, if we had a costume designer, I don't think they could do a better job of matching us once again in our black and white motif.
I chose this today because it's comfortable and it's warm and warm enough that I'm warm during the day, but I don't have to wear a jacket.
Nice.
It's strategic.
I love that we're in that season.
I mean, I don't know if we're fully in that season because I think I saw we're supposed to get some snow flurries tomorrow. But yes, I enjoy being able to not wear a jacket. How about you? What inspired your outfit today?
I guess I was feeling kind of polka dotty. It's a lightweight sweater, so kind of along the same lines, right? Like I didn't need the extra wool and bulk that you
Yeah,
do sometimes in the dead of winter. And then, yeah, the vest is just a layer to keep me warm in case, but it's easy to take off if I do feel too warm.
I love it. I'm a big fan of vests. You guys have seen me in vests many, many of times. And I come from a family of broad-shouldered women. And the vest just has so much more give to it than having sleeves on a jacket, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, and what I love about it too is it adds warmth to the torso, which is where I really feel the temperature changes,
Yes.
without the encumbrance of sleeves. But yet it has pockets, so it's really practical throughout the day.
I love it. I'm with you.
Tell us, viewers, what are you wearing today, and why do you love it?
Team vest over here.
Hey, Kristin, what are you reading these days?
Well, right now I'm reading Firefly Lane. No, I'm not reading that. I finished that. I'm reading Fly Away, which is
Okay.
book two. Sorry, I feel backwards today. That's book two in that. That's a series. And I'm probably 65% of the way through. My Kindle would tell me the true answer, but
Is Firefly Lane, is that Kristin Hanna, or are we talking a different author?
nope, it is. It is. Although this series, I think you've read at least the first book, right?
So is Firefly Lane, is that there's two friends, one has a family, one is more in media? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great story. So there's a part two?
There is a second book, but it's not real positive. So I'm struggling with that a little bit. Because I want a happy ending.
And you're how far in?
The second book, I'm 2/3 of the way through.
Oh, so you don't foresee a happy ending coming?
It doesn't feel like it.
Okay.
We'll see.
I am a huge fan of Kristin Hanna, it turns out. Since
Hmm.
I've discovered her, I really, and I'm blown away because she has so many books and she doesn't seem that old. Like, how is she so prolific and so good at this prolificness, right?
It's very true. So I read, she wrote The Women
Oh
also,
my
right?
God, such a good book, right?
Listen, guys, if you have not read this book, The Women, it's historical fiction, Vietnam era. It's about women serving in the military, which people basically said didn't happen, didn't exist. They were treated horribly when they got back, much like the other soldiers also. But it is a long read, and it's a kind of sad. It's a hard read, but it is so good.
It's so powerful. And yeah, just that takeaway that as bad as most of the soldiers were treated, the
Mhm.
women were treated that way by the soldiers themselves because even they said women didn't serve in Vietnam when
Yeah,
really they were there as nurses and working in the hospitals and like saving the lives of those that were injured.
right.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of a running theme with Kristen Hanna is that she recognizes this unsung struggle of women in certain periods of history.
Yeah, yes, I think you're right. And I mean, some of her books are so incredible. So she, I think, also wrote The Nightingale.
I just finished that. That's why I asked what you were reading because it was so good. I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, and that is an incredible book. That's World War II era, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
So good. But she has a broad span of topics also, which I really love. So I'm trying to think. Are there any other titles that come to mind for you that she's written?
Yeah, I read The Great Alone, and that was about a family that moved to Alaska and their experience in Alaska. It's pretty much the point of view of the daughter,
Mm.
and not only is it the great alone, but in a way she is completely alone,
So
and
the
how she
book
gets
is
across.
called The Great Alone. Oh, interesting. I'll have
Yeah,
to look that one up.
and it's interesting because sometimes if you read the synopsis of what the book is about, it's like this is really going to be heavy. I'm not sure if I could do it, but her writing style and the journey she takes you on is so worth it.
Yeah, I've never, I mean, the books she writes, I can't typically put down. Like, I just really want to finish, which I have a hard time because sometimes I'm reading at night and I'm, with my Kindle and I'm like, trying to read, but they're so good.
But that really is a testament to how good the writing is, right? That
Yes.
even when you're too tired to carry on, you're still trying to go.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. I just love, especially on a Saturday or Sunday, like getting an hour to just sit with a book and like plow through a bunch of pages. It just feels so good.
So what's interesting about The Nightingale, I had it on my Libby audiobook holds list. And
Mm,
I was number 2,274th in line, right? I thought I'm going to be 100 before this book becomes available. But so I finally got a hard copy of the book, and the book was like this thick. And yeah, I could not put it down. And it highlighted the resistance in France during World War II had so much success because the Germans discounted women. They just saw women as like pretty faces and had no idea at the time that women were running these spy operations and helping
right.
get airmen out of the country and things like that.
Right. Yeah, that makes me think of, and I don't think we've talked about this on air. Um, The Winemaker's Wife. Is that what it's called? The Winemaker's Wife. Not a Kristen Hanna book, World War II, and also about women being involved with the resistance. That book is awesome. Twists and turns and unexpected things. You're like, holy cow. It was so good.
There's so much to learn, even though it's historical fiction, right? But the history part of it is so worth knowing. I read another World War II era book called A Woman of No Importance,
Mm,
and she was working kind of a spy capacity, and some of the small details that they realized, right? So in France, apparently, a button when it's sewn on, the threads go parallel to each other. Whereas in America and Britain, when a button is sewn on, the threads are like in an X shape. And so even down to like that little detail. Yeah, do you have a button? Let's see. Do I have a button on my
yeah. In my 43rd year of life, my vision is going to crap.
I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, you can see like how the threads cross over each other on this button.
Mine is crisscross too.
But apparently in France, at least back in the World War II era, they did it parallel. And
Yeah.
so just a detail as small as that could give somebody away as not being authentic.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, so there is no show next week, Wednesday. Doug and I are going to be off. We'll talk about it when we get back.
Yes.
But I would love some reading titles because I'm going to have some time to read. So drop those titles in the comments. Let us know what are you reading. What do you recommend? Let's get a list going.
Uh-huh. I would love to know. Love, love, love to know. And reading is so valuable for its communication. Kristen, you sent me a picture and I can tell there's something communicated on it, but tell me more. What is happening in this picture?
So last week on I think Thursday, Doug had to travel. He had a same day trip out to Detroit and back in the same day. And it's been a while since he traveled, so I think for myself and for the girls, it's just weird. It kind of brings a little bit of anxiety of like, oh, he's going to be gone and he's going to be on a plane. And there's been a lot of plane crashes lately, and so there was just a bit of an anxiety about it. And so he has always had a habit of leaving us a note. And usually it's a piece of paper on the kitchen counter, which I always like. It's like this thing that I have to keep it there until he gets back. But on this particular morning, he used dry erase marker on my bathroom mirror. And so when I got up to go to the gym in the morning, I had this message waiting for me right in the bathroom, which was like a super nice surprise. And just like, I don't know, it's kind of neat to see like your spouse's handwriting in the morning. So yeah, so it says, "Have a great day. I'll see you tonight. I love you, Doug."
I love it. And it's so special too because you know it was a message thought out for you,
Yeah.
right? Left for you. It connects you even. Oh, that's beautiful.
And obviously, we don't keep dry erase markers in our bathrooms. So, like, he was thoughtful about this, and I appreciated it. So, just kind of like on a day that maybe would have been a little bit heavy, like it brought me joy right away and made me feel great about the day.
Okay, and so for anyone else that might be thinking about dry erase on a bathroom mirror, does it come off well?
Oh, yeah, it wipes off just with like a dry erase eraser. Or you can use like Windex and paper towel. But yeah,
I never thought of using a mirror that way. How cool.
totally works as a dry erase board.
And so is he back? He got back safely?
Oh yeah, it was the same day. And actually, he wasn't supposed to land back in Green Bay until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and so he was supposed to get home late. And ended up being able to catch a 4:10 flight back from Detroit, so he made it home in time to eat dinner with us.
Ah, Jason did something similar too. I just wanted to share a picture. He left a, a cookie from Grow It Forward on my keyboard, and he had taken the time to put the heart and the J plus T. So, and that was such a good feel. I ended up not eating the cookie probably until way later in the day because I just kept enjoying the packaging, right?
You
Just
just wanted to save it.
that thoughtful touch.
What kind of cookie was it?
Chocolate chip.
That sounds so good.
Yeah, Grow It Forward makes good food.
Yeah, so that was a surprise, right? Just a nice
Yeah,
little note.
just a
Okay.
touching little touch point, right?
So let's talk about, because I sent you a couple of other pictures of communications. Like, because communication matters.
It does matter. And let me take the photo away for a second. Riff on that for a second, because communication matters.
So, I mean, I work with a lot of teams, and communication is just always seems to be an issue. Sometimes it's like hard for people to get on the same page. Sometimes it doesn't feel safe to say what you want to say or what you need to say. And I just last week I was with a group, and there had been some communication breakdowns. And we got in a room together and we did some brainstorming on the things that impact their jobs the most and kind of prioritized some action plans around it. And then we played with Legos. And the team could not believe how much people were talking and sharing and socializing. And, I think one thing is like having somebody from the outside come in kind of breaks that barrier down and helps them feel like they have a third party that's there, that's neutral. But also, we just made it a safe space and a neutral place. So, like, we all need to share and we all need to find things. And, in the end, a lot of these teams had things in common they needed help with. So, it actually ended up being a bonding experience because, again, they have more in common than they think, which is very typical.
And that's why communication too is important because sometimes the nugget of what's being discussed is the same, but the words being used to describe it
Right.
are different. And then that's where we get lost, right? Like that's where there can sometimes be a communication breakdown. So recognizing that we have more in common to begin with, and if we can just finesse the communication to get there.
Right. And there were even silly things like my office chair is broke, or the windows on this side of the building prevent me from seeing my screen in the afternoon because the sun shines, or just, very basic things that like you should be able to go talk to your leader about and that leader can help you resolve it. But there was like fear around talking about these things. And once we started talking about it, there was like a third of the room that had this sunshine issue.
And that's huge because that impacts productivity immediately. You can't effectively do your job if you can't see your screen.
Yes.
Oh,
And like 2 or 3 people commented about their chairs. And the leader was like, "Oh my gosh, just come tell me. I'll order you a new chair." Like it was so not a big deal, but somehow it had become a big deal.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so what about these eggs, Kristen? What's happening here?
So Doug works in manufacturing. A lot of my HR career is in manufacturing, right? So we have this kind of first in, first out mentality, right? And so we had 2 dozen eggs there, and then we had a grocery delivery come, and these were obviously the ones that were there that were older. And so Doug labeled these use first, meaning we've got to use these 2 dozens before the other ones. So a little bit of inventory management there happening in our house.
That's brilliant. Inventory management in the kitchen is huge, don't you think?
That's right. And I mean, we all know how expensive eggs are right now. So like managing that inventory, making sure we use them is an important thing.
Right. I got to put the photo back up because I wasn't sure if I was peeking inside your refrigerator or Fort Knox when you sent me this photo.
Oh, tell me why you think it's Fort Knox.
Because they're as valuable as gold.
Well done. Well done. I know sometimes I eat just egg whites and I can't even bring myself to do it. I'm like, I've got to eat the whole egg. I can't even just throw the yolk away. They're too worthy right now.
Worth too much.
Literally
Yeah.
gold.
It reminds me, we were doing a small renovation project that had to do with some can lights. And so there's plastic here over the mantle. And we had some questions that we had for the electrician, and we just didn't want to forget. And then we also weren't sure if the electrician was going to be there when we weren't there.
Yeah.
So right on the plastic, we had written these questions so that we could remember or that he would see them and know that we had questions.
Okay, so tell us translate these for us because some of them seem straightforward like lights and then other ones I'm like, I don't know what this says.
Oh, yeah. So this was about the lights. And so that was to give him the idea that these questions were related to the job he was doing. And so the first one is direction. So, whether we had to choose a direction or whether they were, directionally adjustable once they were installed. Then we wanted to talk about the spacing, which would determine the number.
Yep.
Whether there would be zones, like would there be a switch for just 2 of them and a different switch for the other 2, or did they all go on or all go off? And then whether they could also be dimmable.
Ah, dimmable. There we go. I love it. I kept reading that as demarble. Are we getting demarble on the mantle?
Maybe tomorrow.
Isn't that funny how our brains do that sometimes?
Yeah, it is. It is. No, wait, I think you sent me another photo. Oh,
I see.
Kristin.
Very, very important.
What is this communicating?
So I was in a huge rush one morning and thankfully I did not have an issue with toilet paper in the bathroom, but the toilet paper was out. And so I just decided I was going to close the toilet and put the toilet paper roll on top of it. It was like the international sign for there's no toilet paper in this bathroom so that if Doug or one of the girls went in there, they would recognize that, hey, there's an issue here. And so then I left and I was gone the whole day. So I thought if I get back and I'm the first back, I will replace it, but this is it. Well, Doug happened to come home at lunch and he snapped this picture and he's like, is this an indication of an issue that happened in the bathroom this morning? Like, please tell me about this. And I said, no, I just wanted to make sure whoever used the bathroom next knew that they had to get toilet paper. And he said, well, I did. So your communication worked.
Well, brilliant. Awesome.
Right? But we all know this could have been a dire situation.
Right. But you gave somebody the heads up immediately before they engaged with the toilet, right? That go ahead, but this roll is completely empty.
Yeah. What would you have thought if you had walked into the bathroom and saw this?
Exactly that.
Okay.
Exactly that. Like, oh, before I can go any further, I have to track down a roll.
Yeah. Well, then it worked.
Does it say something on the roll? Is there something written in marker? I couldn't tell.
It's just like, the glue that is on the toilet paper roll. But again, some communication is just, like for fun or whatever, like the eggs, but some communication is very, very important.
So as adults, we definitely get what's being communicated. Do you think your daughters would too? Would kids have understood what that meant?
I mean, that's a really great question. I'll have to ask them tonight. I feel like they would have, but I don't know.
Okay. Because I feel like they could also think it's like the start of the setup of like an Elf on the Shelf scenario.
Yes. Well, that's true. Anything's possible. I feel like sometimes the girls would just be like, oh, there's no toilet paper here. And they would just go use another bathroom rather than replacing it. That's like the difference between kids and adults.
Oh, right. So they didn't have the follow through to correct the situation, but at least they knew not to use it.
They would have been like, ooh, something's happening here. But they wouldn't.
I'm out.
Yeah, they would have just gone and used another bathroom. I'm done. I can't handle this.
Well, speaking of kids and communication, Teak was taking a statistics course,
Oh,
and it was like mind-boggling. It's not his forte, definitely not my forte. We spent hours together, like researching and reviewing and trying to figure it out. And so at one point, I knew what this meant. And like now, when I came across this photo that I had snapped, it's like gobbledygook. I feel like I'm looking at ruins from Lord of the Rings or something.
when you said statistics, I had a flashback to college and having to take a stats class and feeling the same way. Like I hated it. It was so hard. I think I did okay, but it was definitely not my thing. And I would have to do a lot of research to know what to do with that equation.
Yeah. Yeah, and he ended up doing great in it, so that's cool. It was worth all the time and effort. But
Thanks to
right,
his
when you talk
thanks to his talented tutor.
I was just moral support. I always tell him I'll be your sounding board. I can't do any of the work for you, but if you have any questions or want to talk something through or like, figure out a way to approach it, research it, let me know.
I love that. He's so lucky to have that.
Ah, thanks.
All
But
right.
like, as far as communication goes, right? Where would you even start? How would you need to know so much before you can even dip into like what does Z possibly represent?
I feel like what I would do is put that equation into the internet or YouTube and search videos on how to figure that out. And I would study that or watch. Like, there's some great videos out on math. Like, I can remember when we homeschooled the girls, there were times where we'd have to like watch videos to figure out how to do something. So I feel like that would be my first step would be to take that equation and drop it on the internet and try to search or understand.
Smart.
Yeah. Or
Um,
I would ask Chat GBT to teach me.
that's cool. Now that ChatGPT exists, I bet it could help you solve that. And also then you can be like, explain, like,
Right.
what does this V shape represent, right?
I'm sure it could solve it, but that is not going to help you learn it. So, hello people. Yes, use that, but like you need to learn. So, take it to the next level.
Right. Find out the why because
Mhm.
each equation isn't always going to just be this one singular equation.
Yes. I think it's always
So,
interesting on the theme of Chat GBT. Some people are either like using it all the time to their advantage, or they have like a total fear of it. It doesn't feel like there's a lot in between.
hmm, I feel like it can definitely be a useful tool. You don't want to like just rely on it. You don't want it to solve things for you or just wholesale use what it gives you because that has a certain sound and a certain feel and it's not you, right? But it can really be a useful tool to help you figure things out.
Right. Yeah, I've used it for like titles and naming things where I'm like trying to massage a title or come up with something and I know I have like a group of words but I can't like pull it together. I've used it a couple of times to just like give me the theme or the name and pull it and it's been so helpful.
Well, and you can even ask it things like, are there resources? Are there any publications that have talked about this topic? And
Yeah,
it will like come back and be like, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? So rather than having to research all of those things individually, it can, you know what I mean? It can deliver up some interesting results.
I love it. Yeah, so don't let it do the work. Don't give up your brain space, but use it as a tool to become smarter.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Always pursue that knowledge.
I love it. All
Hey,
right, you got something out there. Let's see.
speaking of communication, Kristen, last year at the Women's Summit, I have this little snapshot from a note written on the toilet paper, let that blank go.
Hmm.
And I feel like that was really useful and powerful and gets me really excited for the summit coming up this weekend.
I know. Yeah, you guys, registration is closed now, but the Women's Summit is this Saturday. We're going to have, I think, with our speaking group, almost 75 people there, which is, just so incredible.
That's essentially capacity, right?
It is basically at capacity. Yeah, we're getting really close. And it's just going to be such a great weekend. Again, it's just such a unifying experience, such a safe space. So, yeah, we are excited. If you registered for the Women's Summit, we can't wait to see you and spend the day with you.
What are you looking forward to?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's something to be said about welcoming a group of women in and giving them time and space to think about kind of how they can be the best versions of themselves. I mean, because honestly, like when we care for ourselves, we can pour a heck of a lot more out into our families, our careers, the community, all of those things, right? And it's really, really fun to sit back and watch women. Thanks, Becky, 72. I knew I was close. It's just incredible to sit back and watch women have aha moments, gain knowledge, make decisions to change what they do. And when they do that, they get stronger. And it just like what comes out of that is always beautiful.
I love that. And you talked about creating a safe space, for example, with the office teams you were working with.
Right,
Having a safe space for women to do that exact same thing is a beautiful gift.
right. And I think too, talking about things that aren't normally talked about, I mean, that we all deal with, right? Like, let's talk about what does female gut health look like? Where do you go to get that? Right? How do you find that information? Who talks about it? Who talks about the spiritual connection and how important that is? Right? That's almost like a, untouchable topic. People don't want to talk about their faith or their spirituality. And like, so just making really important space for all of these things and trying to give knowledge and options. And this is what it can look like. And yeah, it's going to be great.
And even empowering women to have those conversations, empowering women to connect and to be their best selves in light of the books that we've been reading too, right? Where historically women have been sidelined or discredited just for being a woman, like overlooked, almost invisible. Like that can't ever happen again, right? We have to keep moving forward and making sure that women show up and women shine.
Right. And I think, the other just really cool thing is a lot of the many, many, many of these speakers have their own businesses, are very active in our community. And it's just a beautiful examples of how it can be done. And, how it can be done in a place where like we've got wonderful husbands and great male role models and all like this is how it can work. Right? This is how it can work in a beautiful way. So I personally love just being an example of that and being able to show up and kind of represent how that works. And I'm certain my peers love to do that. I know you've certainly enjoyed doing it in the past. And
Yeah. And I love the connection too, right? Some of the things you could ask ChatGPT, right? What is women's gut health? And, you know, what can I do about it? It might have some responses for you, but it can't provide the connection. It can't provide that space to know that, but then to share it and talk about it and lift each other up.
well, again, and hear somebody else talk about it or hear what somebody else did and be able to share that. That only happens when you're relationally in the same space as other people talking, sharing meals, having experiences together. Like that's where the bonding comes from.
Yeah. Hey, Kristen, before we have to sign off,
It can't
tell
be,
us,
oh my gosh,
tell,
it can't be time already.
tell us about your amazing girls. How did this show go?
Oh, you guys, last weekend was Willy Wonka Kids. My two youngest, Nora's in the middle, and then Josie's on the end. They were so great. So this is my family. Um, Grace, my oldest, is 15 there. She's looking like such a young lady, but
Oh, she is. I was like, who's the other adult in the picture with you guys?
she's not. But these kids did such an incredible job. 6 years old to 14 years old. You look at these kids on the stage and you're like, there's no possible way that these are kids, that they're performing, that they're memorizing things, right? Um, so Nora was Charlie Bucket. She had a huge role. We practiced and practiced lines at home. She nailed it.
Yes.
Nailed it. And if I can get my hands on the video, I will send it to you so we can watch it. But she sings a song in the show called I've Got a Golden Ticket. And like the first show Doug and I were at, we are bawling because she was so cute and she did such a good job. And I mean, I just want to give out my Josie girl, my middle. This was her first time auditioning for a show, which is intense all by itself. But she got up there and shined. And same thing, didn't miss a line, like looked just so full of joy. These kids are, you can see that they're just in their element and having a blast. And so I'm so proud of her again for stepping into the unknown. This was like a first time thing and she rocked it. I think we'll see her on stage again. Um, but I love it. I'm super proud of them. Doug and I are both just
That makes me so happy to know. Oh my gosh, what a cool experience. And again, we were talking about like connection at the Women's Summit. Being in a theater troupe is an incredible connection point when you stage a show together.
yes. And the thing about this is, so it's not maybe as competitive as sports. Very supportive, and the goal is to have this incredible performance at the end. And so, just seeing these kids all working together and working towards that one big thing was really neat. But we did not plan on going to all three shows. We ended up buying tickets to all three because it was just so cute and so good. We couldn't resist.
Oh, that is awesome. And you don't want to miss it, right? I mean, yes, it totally makes sense. As a parent, I would do the exact same thing.
Yeah, like I just wanted all the shows, and we sat in different spots in the theater every time. Like I wanted all the views in my brain for the rest of my life. I just like those memories are glued in there.
You're such a good mom.
Aw, thank you.
Kristen, once again, this has been just a delightful conversation. It feels like a minute has passed, and we've been doing this for a while already, and it's time to sign off.
Don't want to stop.
Well, thanks for the great conversation. Viewers, thanks so much for joining us. Feel free to tell us in the comments what you're reading, what you're wearing, how are your buttons sewn on. We want to know everything.
We love you guys.
Remember, we will be off next week, but we're back in 2. We'll see you then.
2 weeks. We'll see you then.
Thanks for watching Coffee with Kristen and Tina.